is Lexi Almedo, and welcome to the 20 Effect podcast. I am just so happy and grateful that you're here. Whether you're listening to this or watching this, thank you. This is going to be my trailer episode. So I kind of just wanted to get into a little bit about who I am, what this podcast is about, the purpose behind it, the meaning behind the name, and then what you can kind of expect about this podcast in the future. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lexi. I am originally from Las Vegas, Nevada, was born and raised there. I've been dancing since I was 2 years old and then played a bunch of sports growing up as well. My dad kind of always said I couldn't dance unless I played a sport with a ball at the same time. So stayed a busy kid growing up. And then once I graduated from high school, I went up to Boise State University where I studied sports media and journalism. And then I was also a member of the mainline dance team for all 4 years, was in a sorority, Alpha Chi Omega, and then was also the sports reporter and editor for the school newspaper. So stayed a busy gal while I was up in school. And then after graduating, I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a graduate assistant coach for a collegiate dance team out here. I'm also working on my master's in sports business, and then I work as a dance choreographer as well. So I have the awesome opportunity of getting to travel the country and hopefully here soon the world to choreograph routines for different studios and high schools and some colleges as well. So, and then on top of all that, I decided to add a podcast to my to-do list. So it's wild. I feel like I've always been the type of person to stay busy and add things onto my plate. I'm getting a little better about learning how to say no, but I just felt like this was something that was really put on my heart and something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. And so here we are, we're doing it. And yeah, so I guess kind of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast is because after graduating from college, I actually moved home for a year. And that year was super eye-opening, but really isolating as well. And I think a lot of people that I know in their 20s experience that same type of thing. Like we grow up, we're in elementary school, then we go to middle school, then we go to high school, then we go to college. And then after college, that's really the first time in our lives where no one's telling us what to do anymore. And the possibilities are endless, which is really exciting, but also really overwhelming and really scary. And I think so too, after we graduate, that is the first time where a bunch of people go in different directions. And we all start to walk through life, but in different seasons, if that makes sense. And so just in my life, and I notice in the people's lives around me, this is a big topic that I feel like isn't talked about enough. And I just want the opportunity to have open conversations about these types of things. And I'm going through the same thing as well. I just turned 25 a couple days ago. I keep joking that my brain is fully developed and I'm entering my quarter life crisis. But in all seriousness, like your 20s are really hard and they're such a sweet time, but really confusing and conflicting, and you're just learning a lot and growing a lot in those years. And so I just want to use this opportunity and this platform to have those conversations and be able to help people along the way. So with that, that's kind of, I guess, the reasoning behind starting this podcast. I felt like this kind of dream was placed on my heart about a year ago. And with that, I just felt like I wasn't in the right place mentally and just like insecurity wise to start something like this. I am such a people pleaser. And so I was really terrified about what people were going to think and whether this was going to be like a good thing or if people were going to like this or think I was like weird or stupid for starting something like this. And so I chose a word for the first time starting like the new year. I know it's cheesy, but I had never done that before. And my word for the year was bold. I think I had just gotten to a point where I was like tired of constantly worrying about what other people were thinking. And so with that, just a Bible verse that I've been kind of clinging on to lately is Galatians 1:10 and just kind of like, are the things I'm doing supposed to be pleasing to people, or are they supposed to be pleasing to the Lord? And so really just kind of diving into that and figuring out like, okay, is this something, am I doing this to please people, or am I doing this to please the Lord in that, like helping others through this kind of season of life and through this time? So that is kind of just the dream and everything that has kind of brought this sort of to fruition. I actually had a podcast when I was in college called Hold the Mic. My co-host and I, she's one of my close friends, and then we were teammates in college as well. We started it as like a sports podcast, kind of just to look good on like our resumes, but it ended up being so much fun and just learning and growing so much through that. We got to interview some really cool people. But with that, I specifically remember our last episode, we were both in places. I had just graduated and Jenna was going to graduate, I think the next week. And we were both in places where we were so lost and so confused, and life was so unpredictable. And that was really scary. And I wish I would have had the resources that I do now then to help me through that, and like just someone to let me know it's going to be okay and you're going to get through this, but here's how you do it. And I think I went through so much growth in that, but I really want to help people going through that time period, like provide them with the resources that I wish I would have had. And I also have such a great opportunity of getting to coach college athletes. And I think it's such a sweet time of year where they're getting ready to graduate, and just watching my the senior class kind of go through the same thing I went through. And I remember spring semester of senior year of college, I'm not kidding, I think I cried every single day because I was so confused and so conflicted about what I was supposed to do. And so if anything, like I hope this helps them. I hope this helps anyone in their 20s that's dealing with this kind of unpredictable future and this weird chapter of life that we're in. But yeah, that's kind of, just to wrap it up, that's kind of the purpose behind why I'm starting this podcast and why I felt called to do this. But I do want to tell you guys a little bit about the meaning behind the name. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I used ChatGPT to help me write the name. So I actually came up with a different name a year ago, and just talking through, I wasn't really set on it or anything, but talking with other people through it, I don't think it was really working or was really trying to like achieve what I was trying to convey, if that makes sense. And so I had the concept and I had the idea, and pretty much I just asked chat, like, give me some names. And it took a while to get to, but I came up with a list of names and then kind of sent that to a few of my close friends who I really trust, and I trust their judgment and their opinions. And so with that, they said that the 20 effect really stood out to them. And I wanted something that was easy to remember and kind of unique too at the same time. So I still fully wasn't set on the name. I prayed about it and I thought about it a lot. And so I decided to look up the number 20 in the Bible and what it means. And it means the perfect waiting season or the perfect waiting period. And I feel like that's what your 20s are kind of about sometimes. And so that for me was like, okay, this is good. I'm talking about kind of life in your 20s, so that works. And then the word effect, I was like, okay, what does that mean, or what can that represent? And I was really inspired by the book, The Defining Decade. I really recommend it. It's pretty much about talking about how your 20s are so significant in the work that you do in your 20s really sets you up for the rest of your life in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. And not to say that if you mess up in your 20s, the rest of your life is ruined, but pretty much saying like the works that you do now in your 20s, you will be able to like reap those rewards later on. And so kind of that impact and that effect. So that is how the 20 effect came about. After just like praying on it and thinking about it, I knew that this was the right name and really kind of encompassed what I wanted to convey and talk about. And so that is kind of the reasoning behind the name. But I kind of talked about how your 20s, everyone is in such different seasons of life. And I'm really dealing with that hard right now. And with that, I want to be vulnerable in this, and I want to be open and honest and share, stories and experiences that I've had in order to help people. And I think something about your 20s is, especially when you get closer to your mid 20s and really graduate from college, is because everyone is in different seasons and walks of life. I mean, I have friends that are engaged. I have friends that are married. I have friends that are having babies and starting families, and it's all so sweet and so exciting. But I will say it's hard to not want to compare, especially when it comes to social media and seeing, I swear, I see an engagement, a wedding, a baby announcement on my Instagram feed every single day. And of course, I am so happy for those people, but it's really difficult to not compare. And I have just been kind of clinging on to comparison is the thief of joy. And it's so funny because those people that are in those seasons of life are also happy for me in my seasons of life. So it's such a thief of joy when I'm sitting here and when we're sitting here comparing our lives of well, should I be engaged? Should I be married by now? And something that I was thinking about as I was kind of getting ready this morning is you are never late in your life. And what I mean by that is you're never going to be late to something that is meant for you. And you are going to arrive just on time. And I am a firm believer in the fact that people say life is short, but life is long enough to be able to accomplish and do everything that you want to do. It might not look the way that you have it planned in your head, and it might not look the way that you wanted it to be years ago, but you will never be late to what is meant for you in your life. And so I've just been kind of clinging on to that, and I hope that that piece of advice can kind of help people it's so easy to compare our lives to others and feel I was sitting at my birthday dinner the other night, and I would say majority of all my best friends were there. I was missing a few, but majority of the close people in my life were all there. And I was the only single one at the table. And for a second, I was just oh my gosh, why am I not in a relationship? Am I late to that? I'm 25. I should be in a relationship. And it's just we can't think that way, and we can't think like that because we are going to be able to do everything that we want to do in this lifetime, and things are going to happen for us and things are going to come for us in God's perfect timing. I think so too. Something that has been super helpful for me is when thinking back to that year that I had moved home after graduating from college. For a while, I sat around and felt so sorry for myself because all my friends had these jobs. They were moving to different cities, and I was just sitting here, living back at home with my parents and feeling sorry for myself. And it wasn't until I actively started working in my life and allowing God to work in my life and actively doing things and putting myself out there and making friends, that's when my life started to change and when my life started to get better. And instead of sitting in that season of waiting and just waiting for something to happen, I was making stuff happen. And I feel in those moments, that's when God starts to work in our lives. And so he might be quiet for a while, and that's probably when he's doing his best work. But with that, we can't just sit around and wait for something to happen in our lives. We have to be actively working and doing stuff so that way God can work on our lives. And so I feel it was finally when I was starting to feel happy back home and was feeling good about my place and the job that I had and everything like that. That's when my life started to change. And when I had to take that next step of okay, you have made it. You've come to this realization that you are okay with where your life's at. Now it's time to change. And now it's time to grow. And now it's time for something better. And I think that's so sweet too. And we don't have to sit around and wait for our future partner to arrive. What work can we actively be doing right now? So that way, when that person does come into our lives, we're ready and we're in a really good spot. And so we can't sit and wait around for that perfect job to come around when we're not working hard and doing the work that we need to in our current position. So I think so too. It can be so easy to think about like, oh, well, hopefully I'll be married by 3 years. Hopefully I'll meet my person in the next 6 months. Like, what work are we doing today and what work can we be doing now in order to get there? And I think so too, like getting rid of the timeline of, it's so great that we live in a world today where our futures and our lives look so different. And I mean, we have the opportunity to, when it comes to the workforce, choose a lot of different options. And like I said, that can be really overwhelming, but it's really exciting and really empowering too at the same time. So that is kind of, I guess, a little bit about what you can expect out of this podcast and the conversations that we are going to have. With this, I want to have conversations and me be vulnerable and me be open and share my experiences and my story and my testimony. But I also don't want to make this about me. And I know that in order to help people and in order to reach people, I can't do that just myself. And so with this, kind of the plans for the 20 Effect is I want to have people on not just in their 20s, but in all walks of life and in so many different eras, because I think everyone's story deserves to be told and shared. And I think everyone has such great pieces of advice that they can share, and maybe advice that I share might not resonate with you, but something that someone else shares will. And that is kind of my goal, is to just bring really great people on that can provide wise counsel and great advice and kind of help us navigate these years. And I think that's super special. And just talking to some of the people in my life, there's some really great stories that I'm really excited to kind of get to share with you guys and have them share with you guys too. Along with that, I don't want this to be just about me. Yes, I plan on being vulnerable and open and sharing, but I really want to make this about helping people. And I think my biggest nightmare, I've literally been having nightmares about, is about making this self-centered and self-focused. This isn't a diary for me. This isn't therapy. I have my resources for that. This is to truly just help people and help anyone who's listening. And with that, yes, it's called the 20 Effect. And yes, the goal is to reach people in their 20s. However, this podcast just isn't meant for people in their 20s. I was talking to a family member a couple months ago, and they're currently dealing with a midlife crisis in their 50s. And so I think like, okay, what's something or advice that you gained in your 20s that you're now able to apply to that midlife crisis that you're having in your 50s because you did the work then? And I think being able to share stories will also be able to impact people in all different eras and walks of life. And if you are someone that is listening or watching and you aren't in your 20s and you have advice that you want to share, please message me, DM me, email me. I want to hear your story, and I would love for other people to hear your story and advice that you may have, because we're all in this together and we're all navigating this crazy, unpredictable chapter of life together. So yeah, that's kind of my plans for the future. With that, I also want to say, if you know me, you know that I am a very busy human and I am in school. I'm working like 3 different jobs, and I decided to add this on, and I want this to be a big priority, but I also know that I'm not going to be able to produce episodes weekly, and that's okay. And I hope that's okay with you too. I really want to be able to put 100% effort into this. I'm such a perfectionist and want everything to be done well. And with that, I know the time and the quality that I need in order to reach those goals. And so I think my goal is to get an episode out like monthly. Bi-monthly would be great, but monthly is for sure the goal. So I hope that you stick around for that. I have some really awesome ideas that I'm really excited to share, but that's just kind of the future and the plan for this podcast. With that said, I do want to just take a moment to thank the amazing people in my life who have been supporting this idea and this podcast. And from the people who I swear, like I have friends that I'm texting nonstop who have their own podcasts and just asking for advice and, okay, what equipment do I need to buy? What do I need for this? And so thank you for just your support. Thank you to my family and friends for just supporting me and supporting this and loving on me during this crazy time. It's been a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of coffee, a lot of just like working to make this happen and make this all come together. So I could not appreciate, like words can't express how much I appreciate just your love and support and cheering me on in being able to do this. And so thank you. I also wanted to take a moment to dedicate this episode to a family member who passed away over the summer. Leo was an incredible husband and father and friend and grandfather and pastor, and especially and most importantly, he was a great man of God. And to my knowledge, Leo had purchased podcast equipment before he passed to record his sermons. And so after he passed, my cousin had reached out to me knowing that I was starting a podcast and had donated all of Leo's stuff to me. And so seriously, like what you see, like this mic was his, and a lot of what you see and what you don't see on camera was donated graciously by him and his family. So I just wanted to dedicate this episode to Leo. And I think especially him being such a great human, I'm going to get emotional, great human and a man of God, I think it was just the final nudge that I needed to really pursue this and start this. And this was God kind of saying like, here's the tools, here's everything that I can give you, now go out and do it. And so it seriously means the world to me for that kind of love and that kind of support. And I just hope and pray that I'm able to honor Leo throughout this and honor God as well. So that concludes this trailer episode of the 20 Effect. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you are able to gain something from it. The first official episode is currently in the works, so I hope you stick around for that, hopefully coming out soon. And I just want you to remember that no matter what you're going through, we're in this together. Bye, y'all.